people out there going to go, we've got a Republican system of government in Canada, and they've made Thielman president. Good Lord. So you're president of...
No STV.
No STV.
Back for a second time, 4 years later, doing it all over again.
Okay. And the other side of the debate on the show, Bruce Halser, yes STV. But you're co-chair, a more...
That's right. We're a more democratic outfit.
So we're going to try to get through this and sort of explain the system, explain how we got here, air some of the arguments for and against. But I'm going to start off, I'm going to ask each of them. I'll start with Bill. Why should people stick with the system we have?
Well, the alternative is so bad. That's what we think. The single transferable vote is a very obscure, complicated system. We're talking about having ridings from 2 to 7 members, up to 350,000 people in a single riding. And we say that takes away the local accountability and responsibility that voters should get from their MLA. For example, as I flew in here today, right over the capital region, the proposed riding, 7 different ridings, all the way from the tip of the Cowichan Valley, all the way through to Port Renfrew, downtown. And so when people go to vote, I was just watching the giant size of this riding. Imagine an all-candidates meeting, or imagine where would the MLA offices be, and would we have everyone be pretty much concentrated in downtown Victoria? All the MLAs could come from downtown Victoria and leave all those other areas unrepresented. And that's a huge problem for us.
Is it fair to say that you don't like the STV system more than that you really like the current system?
Yeah, well, our group is really a coalition of people, some of whom would prefer the mixed member proportional, some would prefer a proportional representation list system, others of us support the first past the post system, but think that the legislature itself could be improved and there could be more accountability of the MLAs in that function as well, without actually making the sort of changes to the electoral system, because we're always going to have politicians. You can change electoral systems, we're always going to have politicians, and that's, I think, what people get angry with.
Yes.
Well, you know, there are lots of systems out there, and lots of electoral reformers might choose all kinds of systems, but there's only 2 on the ballot. There's single transferable vote or first past the post. And as far as we're concerned, British Columbians are sick and tired of the way politics works in this province. People have been talking about changing the legislature for years. You've seen all kinds of people get elected saying, we're going to have more independence, more free votes, we're going to listen to our constituents. It never happens for one reason, because our electoral system creates centralized power and doesn't give MLAs any power. We're in an election right now. You open your newspaper, you look at a map, almost every seat in the province is handicapped for one party or the other. There's only a few seats where there's actually an election going on, and in the rest of them we know who's going to win. Voters don't matter in this current system. If you're an MLA and you want to get re-elected, you've got to be part of your party, you've got to be, you have to have the confidence of your leader, and the election is decided at a nomination meeting somewhere. In STV, Liberal voters in a strong Liberal area are going to be able to pick which Liberal candidate they want to support, and NDP supporters are going to pick which New Democrat they want to support. It's not going to be done in the back rooms anymore. It's going to be open and accountable to the people, and I think that has a real chance of making a difference in our democracy.
As we put their names and faces up on the screen tonight, Bruce and Bill, you're occasionally going to see a website below them as well. And some of the things we're going to talk about tonight, you might want to go on the website and have a little look at it, read it in a little more detail. You might want to go to Elections BC site as well and have a look at some of the things that they've put up there for voters on this issue. But one of the things that's going to happen when you go to vote on May the 12th is you're going to get this second ballot. Along with electing your local member, you're going to get a ballot, and we're going to put it up on the screen so you can see what actually you're going to be voting on, because this is the referendum ballot for British Columbia. So the question is, which electoral system should BC use to elect members to the Provincial Legislative Assembly? So the existing system, we've heard it called first past the post several times, it's a system we've used here, and the single transferable vote electoral system called BCSTV, which was the one that was proposed some years ago by the Citizens' Assembly on electoral reform. The ballot is a little different from last time, Bill Tillman.
Yeah, it is. Last time it was yes or no, and we feel from our side that gave a bit of an advantage to the STV side, because it's easier to vote positively for a yes than a no. This time it'll be, you pick our current system or the proposed system, and I think that's a much more fair way to put the question.
You think the ballot makes a difference?
I think it makes a difference. I disagree with Bill. I don't know if this is our fundamental debate for the night, but you know, most of the time it's hard to get a yes vote. Most referendums around the world that are yes-no fail. It's hard to convince people to vote yes. If they don't understand something, it's easier for them to vote no. That's the conservative thing to do. I actually like this ballot because it provides a clear choice. Nobody can pretend that if you don't vote for STV, there's some other electoral system we might get. You've got a clear choice between our existing dysfunctional system and something that has been recommended by the Citizens' Assembly as a way forward for the province.
We'll talk a little bit about how we got here, and we're going to start off with a few words from, I would say, we wouldn't have had the first referendum on electoral reform, never mind the second one, if it hadn't been for this guy, Premier Gordon Campbell. Here he is.
I should also say this. I think there is a legitimate debate to be had. And I think that when you reflect on that, that's important. You know, some people think what we've got is what works. You know, I mean, certainly I like the results this time.
So he decided in 2003 to set us on the road, set up a Citizens' Assembly on electoral reform, and stayed out of it himself. None of them took a position in the 05 election, right? I mean, afterward, a couple of members, Carol James and others, disclosed that they'd voted a certain way, but the party stayed right out of it. Yeah. Are they staying out of it this time? Pretty much.
Except for the Green Party. The Green Party is wholeheartedly advocating for STV, and I think there's sort of an obvious reason why they think it might get them a seat or two, but the other parties are staying out of it.
And there's a bit of money for your two organizations this time, right? We didn't have much funding last time?
Last time we were on our own to scrape together what we could on a pretty short notice. This time we've each been given $500,000 from the province. Doesn't go all that far. It might sound like a lot of money, but the political parties are spending a lot
salaries, hot tubs, travel budgets.
But Vaughn, I got to tell you, we had 10,000 last time. This is 50 times more money, and then some. So
I already jumped ahead of myself here and asked what position the parties are taking. We had the opposition leader on the show a couple of weeks ago and asked her the very question about what position she was going to take. So here's Carol James, and then I'll tell you Gordon Campbell's position afterward. But here's Carol James.
I think it's important for political parties to stay out. There's lots of self-interest there on all sides on political parties' part. I think this is something the public needs to make a decision on. And I, as leader, if I make a statement, obviously people are going to presume that it's the party's statement. So I've said it's up to individuals. Go and make sure you're informed. If it passes, we'll implement it as government, if that's what happens after May 12th. If it doesn't pass, but there's support for electoral reform, we certainly believe in electoral reform, then we'll put another model on the table for referendum at the next election.
She likes this MMP system, which we've talked about. You saw Norman Ruff off the top say, if this thing fails, that's it, he thinks. You think so? This is sort of a do or die for electoral reform?
Well, you know, as we found out last time, if something gets more than 50% of the vote, it's hard to ignore it, even if it doesn't get to 60. And if we end up in that same position, I'll certainly take the view that the majority of British Columbians have spoken and something has to be done. But there's no doubt in my mind, no matter what politicians say, there's been lots of politicians over the years that have promised reforms of elections or the legislature. Once they get elected under first past the post, they kind of decide they have other priorities.
I think there's lots of possibilities there for it, and I think there are a lot of people in British Columbia, particularly, who are interested in electoral reform of some sort or another. The flip side is, in Ontario and PEI, they both had referendums where they convincingly said no, that they wanted to keep the current system. I think we're going to see a close result. I don't know where it will be. It's hard to tell at this stage, but there's no question that there's a lot of people. I mean, Bruce and his organization have been advocating for years on this stuff. I can't really imagine it going away.
Why 60%? Here, with the answer to that question, Premier Gordon Campbell.
People say to me, well, 60% is a high hurdle. I think it's a reasonable hurdle to change the way we're governing. You know, if we got 100% of the people voting, it would be 60% changing the thing, but we don't normally get 100% of the people voting.